This is the new bracket for the DRO scale mounting. This is for the reader head. I've slotted the holes, and you can get behind to put the just to hold the nuts to do it up. And I've got a bit of adjustment in the back as well. There's plenty of adjustment. I've done a trial fit, and it works quite well. It's a neater solution. I think I might still have to take a little more off of this edge, but I'm waiting for the new reader to come through, and then we'll assemble it properly and see. Now I'm going to put all the bits back in this box. Everything's nice and clean, deburred, and etc, etc. I just got to remember where it all goes. And see if I can find some of the pictures I took to remind me. My first task is to just clean out any paint in the threads and give it a good tap. Any rubbish that's in there, it's nice and clean. Then I'm doing a dry assembly just to make sure that there's no issues. This needs to be put in with sealant around there to stop the oil coming out, as does this one. So I'll do a dry assembly to make sure everything goes in, then I'll assemble the lower parts, and last of all anything that needs the sealant. The assembly of this thing is bloody tedious. Another example where the fact that they haven't drilled the holes in the right place is causing problems, because it was always very, very stiff, and the reason being that this needs to go over 1 millimetre. It's catching on the edge of the pin here, and there is no adjustment. It is just up and down, and what needs to happen is it needs to come this way, and it can't because of that hole. So the only thing I can do is take a little piece off of that side to make sure it engages smoothly. Bit of a pain. Carriage is now complete, very smooth. That's certainly helped by the fact that you know, this is really solid, but that bronze, frost bronze strip is nice and friction free. This took a lot of work to adjust it, to get it nice and smooth. It's still a little stiff, but yeah, I don't want to do that too often. On to the next job. I think next I'm going to make a stop that comes out and up past the reader head to stop me crashing this into the DRO. There's not much else I can do. I'm still waiting on fixings, the new fixings for the gib on the top slide and the spindle. So we're sort of coming to a bit of a halt, just doing little bits and pieces. I thought it's worth going through the process that I use for improving almost any mechanical item. I suppose it applies to some electrical items, but this is the generic chuck that comes with the lathe, and I break it down into a few parts. First, dismantle everything to the smallest possible unit that you can. Second, and what I've been doing now is cleaning everything and degreasing it, and for that I use good old brake cleaner, and simply cleaning stuff and re-greasing it. Actually, there's hardly any grease in there, and as you can see, I don't know how they got paint in there, but it's another thing. This is the muck that come out there, and lots of little fine metal filings. So simply going to phase 1 and cleaning it and lubricating it properly is going to get you a much better performing piece of kit. Next part is deburring and fettling the edges. This here, in fact all the machining, there's nothing deburred. This is like a razor. It really is. If I just put my finger down there, that would cut it open. This one has been done. I can happily rub that. It's difficult to tell, but just the edges have been knocked off. Any flat surfaces have been stoned, and it'll need to be cleaned afterwards, but you know, everything's going to slide and move in there much better than that. The kit I'm using is some small sandstones of various grades, a whole bunch of good quality needle files, some small wire brushes, and the finest grade of Scotch-Brite pad just to clean things up. Great thing about this is it's not going to actually damage anything. It will just take any surface rust and stuff off. The other thing to bear in mind is after you've cleaned these, if you're in a wet environment, you do run the risk of it going rusty if you leave it for too long. So I prefer to use a wax on it to protect it, and in use I will put a coating of oil on it as well. But the wax seems to work well. So that's the first bit done. It's all absolutely clean and completely deburred. Anything where there's metal to metal contact is smoothed and polished where I can, and then the whole thing's been given a coat of wax. There are specialist machine waxes that are very, very good. I think they contain unicorn wax or something, but I've been using this for years and it seems okay. It's only really for short-term protection though, whilst the parts are being worked on, but say it seems to work very well. On to the next bit. Now everything's cleaned, deburred, polished where necessary, where you can, waxed. Now it's time to put it all together. The final stage we don't do to this because the final stage is adjustment, and there is no adjustment on this. So it's just a question of putting it back together with some good quality lubricant, grease, whatever. And Bob's your uncle. It might not be perfect, it is what it is, but it's going to be a lot better than what it was. So now it's all back together, and what have we got? Well, it's still a cheap chuck. It's probably not that accurate. It's nicer to use, it's easier to use, but the functionality hasn't changed. There's very little you can do. The scroll is pretty grim. Only time will tell. You know, when I get it in the chuck, I might be not when I get it in the machine rather. I may be pleasantly surprised. Now, on a machine like this, you can make a difference in that final phase of fettling. You know, fine adjustments like the position of this block and the gate there so that everything moves as it should. I'll give you an example. I spent nearly 2 hours on this, filing and fitting and refitting and taking it all off and making sure that it was as good as it can be. It is so much better than it was when it came out of the factory. And these final bits of adjustment can make a big difference. At the end, what it results in is a machine that's more reliable, far more pleasant to use, and is likely to have a longer life